Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Chasing Descent, episode 139. 139. Who would have thunk it? Never in a million years would we have thought we would have got this far, especially without Ben, who's not with us today. I don't mean in a bad way, he's just not with us because he's off having a holiday at Disneyland. But, as always, we have the imitable Adam.
Good afternoon, everybody. Hope you're all well.
So, we're trying some new things today. New camera, new looks. So we're mucking about with stuff. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, welcome to Chasing Descent Live. And shall we proceed with the slides, Adam? Do you think it's time to go? Or
I think it is. Let's do it. Let's go for it.
Let's go for it. Let's go for the slides. So, number one. So, cannabis apparently is now as dangerous as heroin and crack. As far as I was aware, cannabis was not a Class A drug. Is that correct?
I would agree with that. I don't know how they've come to this conclusion. I guess there must be some really strong strain that is knocking people's socks off.
Yeah. Do you think they're maybe going for the it's a gateway drug thing?
Maybe it's because of what's happened in America where they've pardoned people.
Yeah. Oh, what happened there? Our slides popped back. Oh, not to worry. Biden he's pardoned people for cannabis use and jail. So he's let them, or he's taken away their convictions basically for being jailed for cannabis, hasn't he?
Well, look at David Sidgwick. I shudder at demands for a more liberal approach to cannabis, and I believe we should move in the opposite direction.
Yeah, I mean that's a bit OTT, isn't it?
It's very school teachery, isn't it?
Very, very, very school teachery indeed. So, moving on. So the next slide is our friend Ursula von der Leyen. So Ursula is saying that the G7 should condemn the escalation of violence by Mr. Putin. Condemn it. Well, we should condemn violence in any form, but why pick out Putin? Why are we picking out Putin on this occasion? Why aren't we also condemning the violence that's currently ongoing by Saudi Arabia against the Yemenis? Why aren't we condemning the violence that's currently ongoing by China against the Uyghurs? And
it sounds like she's trying to threaten Belarus as well, isn't she?
Yeah, well, we talked about Belarus yesterday, didn't we? And we thought Belarus are they're a bit strange, aren't they? Because we're not quite sure if they are what would you say? If their army is going to stay with them if they actually send them in to fight.
Well, if they see an ice cream van, they'll be off buying a 99, won't they?
They'll be in line behind Joe.
Yeah, they will. Whenever I see Ursula, I always think of 101 Dalmatians as well.
You think of Cruella de Vil?
I do. She's just got that look about her, hasn't she?
She does a bit indeed. Let's move on. And you brought this one up earlier today. Angela Lansbury has died. Good age.
Yeah, she has.
What did she make it to? 86 or something, was it?
I think it was older than that, wasn't it?
Was
it was 96, I think. She's been around forever, hasn't she?
She has really. Murder, She Wrote and all that. But you thought her best loved and most appropriate character, especially for today's dystopia that we find ourselves in, is this, the Manchurian Candidate? Yeah,
definitely. If anybody hasn't seen Manchurian Candidate, go out and watch it, because it demonstrates how you can control people's minds to get them to do what you want, groupthink, that sort of thing. It's a great example of what has happened over the last 2-3 years in so many ways.
Yeah, I mean, you've had the government quite openly using brainwashing techniques, especially at the start of their campaign with three slogans. I mean, that's just so obvious. Anyone who knows anything about brainwashing would pick that up, or even basic psychology would pick up on that. And then we've had things like the 77, we've had the media coercion, we've had the BBC, which is nothing more than a propaganda wing, surely, of the government.
Well, remember the fact checkers as well. We've got hundreds of those now, haven't we?
Yeah, we do. I mean, it's no longer just Snopes in his basement. You know, it's there's stacks of them. Even Reuters around on the act, and then they fact checked. They fact checked one of those videos that's been bouncing around on the internet about the bridge blowing up, which actually wasn't the bridge blowing up. The Kerch Bridge. It wasn't that. It was one from months ago. But you know, Reuters even fact checked the TIE fighter. Do you remember the TIE fighter that I put out before I lost my account? So that fact check came back saying that this was fake, and I said, what gave it away? The fact it was a TIE fighter, the fact there were stormtroopers lolling about near it, or the fact it was snowing on that day in Germany when it wasn't actually snowing. I think it was the snow. I think it was the snow that gave it away. I don't think it was anything to do with them.
I fact-checked Angela Lansbury's age, and she was 96.
96. That's a cracking age, isn't it? Or is it? If you've got your faculties, I think it's all right. Speaking of old people, we've got David Jason here, Sir David Jason, Del Boy, and he's saying that he's struggling with seriously bad coof. Seriously bad. And it's seen him collapse with paralysed arms and legs. Now, we've heard that kind of thing before, but we didn't really attribute it to the virus.
I wonder if Ben would have something to say about that, John.
Ben, would you have anything to say about that?
You know what it is!
I think you're right, Ben. I think you're right. So moving on. So there are fuel shortages in France. Well, are there fuel shortages in France? Well, yes, there is a lack of fuel at the pumps, but it's not there because there's fuel shortages per se. It's because the tanker drivers are on strike, because being French, they want more money. And French tanker drivers are always, the French are always like this. They're always after more money, aren't they? So it's resulted to violence, and have a look at some of the videos, because I'm not playing videos on the show anymore after getting a strike yesterday from YouTube. That's just blatant censorship of the press, blatant censorship. I'm not going to play videos anymore. I think it's outrageous. Anyway, that picture you saw was policemen pushing their van, which had obviously run out of petrol. And then there was another one where there was 5 cops pushing a police car with the blue lights going. So they must have been blue lighting it to an urgent call. So France, the gift that keeps on giving, isn't it?
Well, normally in the UK, they save 10,000 litres per petrol station for emergency vehicles. So don't they do that in France?
Probably. This is France. Probably not. They probably don't think about these things in France. And yeah. So let's move on before we get ourselves into trouble with the Frenchies. What do you know about a strange disease that causes raised pustules on the body? I think, we used to call it, what was it? What was it we used to call it, Adam?
Do you mean the plague or monkeypox?
Monkeypox! It appears that Ireland is still going on with the monkeypox narrative. So they're on Monday they're going to open 11 monkeypox vaccination centres. I mean, good grief, Adam, good grief. They're still hanging on to the pox. Why
only 11? They need many more than that, surely.
Ireland's not that big, is it?
How many cases have they had?
That's a good point. How many cases have they had?
Let me have a look. In August the 10th, 2022, they got 100 cases. It passed 100 cases. So that's 10 people per vaccination centre.
Wow! 10 people per vaccination centre.
With an extra one just for good measure.
That's incredible. And an extra one just to soak up the rest of them. So this is madness. This is, public money that they're using. Okay, it's not our public money because it's Ireland, but they're mad. absolutely mad. What is getting into these people? It's just bizarre.
Yep.
And then
What a waste.
and, I'm going to put up the next slide, and don't read it out, but just read it to yourself and think, what could this possibly mean? Because I'd never heard of this before. I mean, what is that?
Well,
we've had long, and we've had regular, I suppose, but we've never had short or medium before.
Purely from the chap wearing those two coverings,
Yeah.
and the shadow, they want you to take it very seriously. And there's a big A because it's from the Atlantic. I just don't understand.
It's absolutely crazy, isn't it?
It is. I mean, is there any difference between that and the long variety?
Well, it appears to be that medium will be the most dangerous variety.
Right. Do you think they'll do a short one later on in the year?
What? Surely the short one is the short one, is it not? No.
Well, I don't know. I mean, the short one sounds much worse. It's gonna.
I'm just getting confused with the whole situation. But then we go on to Mr. Pfizer himself, who's given a speech to the European Parliament as they're convening an inquiry into the way that they've handled COVID and the vaccine over the last 2 years. And this Pfizer executive has admitted to the EU Parliament that they did not test for preventing transmission.
Well, Albert didn't turn up, did he?
No, he didn't. But so he sent someone in his place. But if they haven't tested for prevention of transmission, how come all of the people and all the restrictions they put in place were based on the fact that it would stop transmission? So how many people lost their jobs because they didn't have a treatment on the basis that they would be asymptomatic transmitters of it? And if they had, they would not be able to. So they lost their jobs, or they were denied the ability to go shopping, or denied the ability to eat in restaurants or drink in bars, while those who had taken the prescribed medication were free to do what they liked on the basis that they wouldn't cause any problems. And yet this chap has said that was never tested for, and the data that's come out of Europe tends to indicate that while it was never tested for, it never actually achieved any of those aims. So, I mean, the quote on that is we had to move at the speed of science. What does that mean? It's just a nonsense. That doesn't mean anything in real terms.
Speaking about science, John, did you see Neil deGrasse Tyson talking to Piers Morgan?
Yes.
That was a real backtrack. It was almost like an apology from Piers Morgan for his absolute toxic behaviour on the internet to everybody.
Yeah.
And Neil deGrasse Tyson was just sort of snickering and laughing nervously while he was talking to him, which made it worse, really.
Yeah, as Neil deGrasse Tyson does it. And strangely enough, this is just one of many that have come out. And this guy's actually got the balls to say that he's sorry, right? And he owes people an apology, which is fine. I mean, he's a PT or something and some kind of writer. He's got a podcast. There's of no consequence. He's just like us. But how many other people, like Morgan, like politicians, like famous people, came out and said that, we had to use a hard line? I mean, even these guys on, what was that big fat guy that was on was it GB News or TV Talk Radio or whatever it's called?
Yes, James Swale. Was it James
Well,
Wales?
he was one of them, James Whale. And then there was the other guy. There was an even fatter guy. There's just so many of them. And the thing is, it's always the obese guys. Even Morgan's obese, really. And
Yes.
and he's going on about, he was going on about locking people up and things like that if they didn't take it. And it turns out that they're all due an apology. We are all due an apology. And it's worse than that.
Yeah, James Smith is a Sunday Times best-selling author Three
Yeah.
times, 3 books he's written.
Yeah. So the thing is, though, what stopped you from looking at the data? What stopped you from reading the papers? What stopped you from taking in the information and making up your own mind? That's the problem. You didn't make up your own mind. You just went ahead and followed the government narrative, followed the propaganda from the BBC, and just castigated and vilified a whole group of society. A whole group of society that, in most cases, were better informed than you were. Much better informed. So, you know what you can do with your apology? You can shove it because you were wrong, and you need to grow up and start thinking for yourself instead of being nannied by the state. That's exactly what's wrong with this country.
I agree with that, John. Here. And James Smith also makes a really good point. If the government will blatantly lie for us to conform to their demands, where does it stop? What are they currently lying to us about?
He's absolutely right, mate. Absolutely right. When has a government ever not lied to you? That's the question I ask. When has it ever not lied to you? Anyway, Tulsi's had enough of the government lying to her. I didn't realise Tulsi Gabbard was so attractive. She reminds me a bit of Kate Jackson. You remember Kate Jackson from Charlie's Angels?
Yep, I do, yeah.
Yeah, she reminds me a bit of her. But anyway, she's leaving the Democrat Party because she can't take what they're doing anymore.
It's quite strong language. You wouldn't associate that kind of language with the Democrat Party, would you? It's supposed to be, anti-war, peaceful party, but
Yeah.
it turns out they're not.
Well, it turns out the Democrats appear to be everything that they said that Trump was. Because
Trump was the opposite. He was a peacemonger, wasn't he?
he was a peacemonger. You're right, absolutely. He was a complete and utter peacemonger, and yet they just went to town on him, didn't they?
They did.
Oh, so this is one for your speciality. Because this is in reference to the title of the show, because what's happening at the moment, Adam?
It is, yes. This is the annual deterrence exercise. In the south of Europe, they get together and they test all their weapons, they test all their fighter jets and their defences against nuclear armament. So
Yeah.
And it's an excuse for them to show off and get all there's lots of videos if you want to look on Twitter of them doing it in the past, and they parade about.
And this is a 2021 article, but it's just to show you that yes, this isn't something they've just dreamed up this year. It is something that they have done every year. We've never heard about it because it's never really been that important before, has it? It's not been important to understand your readiness for nuclear war, because nuclear war was always something that was on the back burner and wasn't really going to happen to us, was it? There was no reason for nuclear war. We'd given up those days of the 60s and 70s when we were preparing for nuclear war, when we were told to put tables up against walls at 45-degree angles and wrap ourselves in pillows. But no longer. We're free.
Duck and cover, John. Duck and cover.
Then what happens? Yeah, duck and cover. Bend over and kiss your ass, because it's the last time you'll be doing anything. Remember the Ukrainians have got it all planned. They're going to have a mass orgy.
Well, I could think of better ways to die if I'm, about to get nuked, and I'm turned into a shadow. Then at least, you'll be having a nice time.
Yeah. Right, tell me about Roblox. What's going on here?
Oh yeah. Well, Roblox have a serious issue with perverts on their platform. So they've had
don't sugarcoat it now.
There's lots of stories about this, all slightly different angles. Basically what's happened is somebody has taken them to court. A California girl has been exploited, which is terrible.
Yep. What age was the girl, do we know?
No, it doesn't say. It just says a lawsuit alleging it enabled a California girl's exploitation. And the problem with the platform is there are these places called condos in Roblox where you can set up a sex room, basically. So what had happened was people had gone on there, they'd set these rooms up, and they had met with this girl in real life. So what the problem is, they're trying to find ways to police the platform, and they've put in AI bots, they've put in people in there to try and stop it, and they're saying that it isn't as serious as it purports to be. The trouble with it is they're restricting people's ability to build the buildings they want in case, you know, it becomes yeah, exactly, a sex room, a condo.
So right, so the problem is Roblox is designed to attract what age group?
Well, it's for young people.
Right. Okay, so it's for kids basically.
Yes, yeah. And when you start looking at things like the metaverse, which is an old person's Roblox, it's going to be the same sort of issue there, where we are going to get restricted in what we say because of these kind of things where you get people spoiling it for everybody.
Well, yeah, you say spoiling it for everybody, but in real, if it's adults, fair enough. I mean, for instance, I'm led to believe that the pornography industry, the pornography video industry, brings in more than Hollywood.
That's right, and Metaverse will be a prime example of that. It will be, you know, very, very popular on there, yeah. I imagine.
So you can't really knock porn if it's making that kind of money, because to make that kind of money, an awful lot of people have got to be buying it.
Yeah, that's right.
More people, one would say, than is going to watch movies and watching Disney Plus or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, so the question then is, should we be restricting it at all for those who aren't minors, right? And then obviously the question becomes, if this is involving minors, then we need to take some kind of action, because that's not how we're supposed to be bringing our children up.
Yeah, yeah. It's a difficult one, because you've got a platform that's built for children and a platform that's not built for children, and you've got adults going onto the platform built for children when they shouldn't necessarily be there, but they, you know, there's some, what they're doing is they're trying to allow free speech by keeping them on there, and it's just going to be a really difficult situation for anybody to police, and they can't do it. I don't think they'll try, but they'll fail.
Yeah. So what does that mean? Really, that's the end for Roblox, or the end for Roblox as a children's entertainment, and it becomes a full-blown OnlyFans type thing?
I think I mean, the guy that runs Roblox, what's his name? Chief Scientist Morgan Maguire. Mm-hmm. I think they're going to have real problems. I think they're going to struggle to do anything to combat it. Yeah. And we'll see what happens in the future. We'll keep an eye on that one.
Yeah, it's something to bear in mind then, because obviously you want to balance up free speech, but you got to put protections in place for kids. You can't.
Yeah.
And that's why we were censored yesterday on YouTube, because we were trying to show people that were breaking the law with regard to children, and that was why we were censored. So we weren't allowed to report on that incident. That's still censorship, and this was we were struck on a channel that has no subscribers, and it wasn't a publicly available video. So the video had never been seen by anyone. It had 0 views, had never been watched. There's no subscribers on the channel. It was only used as a back channel to put in videos so as we could play it on the show. And then, you know, it's like that's censorship of the press, because we're not being allowed to report on it. So how are people supposed to know what's going on in the world if you won't allow us to tell people what's happening in reality, and not just in your little YouTube box where everything is wonderful when it's not really? So anyway, rant over. Russia has arrested a number of people regarding the Crimea bridge blast, and they're not all Ukrainian.
That's right. Yes, we've seen the FSB have said 5 of those were Russians, while the others were Ukrainian and Armenian. It says Kiev was behind the attack, but a Ukrainian official described Russia's investigation as nonsense.
Indeed.
So that's an interesting one. We'll have to keep an eye on that one, I think, because I think Ukraine will say that it isn't. There aren't any Ukrainians involved with that, and let's wait and see what Armenia say as well.
Yeah, well, it's certainly interesting, but it bodes quite well that they're not whitewashing this if they're arresting Russians.
That's right.
You know, I'm quite pleased by that. This pleases me.
Yeah, but you know what they'll say?
Go on.
If it fits in with Russia's narrative, then it will be that these were Russian.
Russian
they were
domestic terrorists.
Exactly. Yeah. Or they will be of a particular part of Russia that is against Putin.
Yeah. Or there'll be Russians who were living in Ukraine and didn't want, or living in Crimea but didn't want Russia to be in charge of it or whatever.
That's right.
Yeah. So they'll bend it to their will, no matter how it works out, won't they? So tell me about the pipeline.
Yep, this is a different pipeline. This is one that runs down through Russia into Germany, into the north of Germany, the Druzhba pipeline.
And we should point out this is not the actual pipeline. This is a model of the pipeline.
Yes, this is at the entrance to the area where the pipeline runs through. The visitor centre. So what's happened is they said initially that it was sabotaged, and it wasn't sabotaged. It was an accident. Of course, with all the other things that are going on with the Nord Stream and the bridge explosions, it was a bit of a worry that this had happened. But now they said it is an accident. And
so who said that? It's Poland that's backtracked, hasn't it?
That's right. Yeah.
So why is Poland being honest?
Difficult to tell. Maybe they've been caught out. Maybe their security teams have not done their jobs properly, and they couldn't pin this on Russia. Yeah.
Well, that's possible. We discussed another bridge that was another attack yesterday, and we discussed it at quite some length. The bridge regarding the footbridge in some region of Ukraine, Kiev, something like that.
Klitschko, the pedestrian bridge.
Yeah, that's right. And you brought this up to my attention today. This Rybar guy in English or whatever. Now we thought it was definitely not a high explosive ordnance. We thought it couldn't have been a cruise missile or any kind of missile, or not even a high explosive shell because of the nature of the explosion. And you suggested it looked like a pyrotechnic.
It did.
You know, and I've certainly seen diesel air bombs, and they're very like that. You know, they look incredibly impressive because you get this huge black cloud of smoke and the big flash, but they don't really do much in the way of damage unless they're in a very contained area. And obviously there's a bit of a crater there, but you know, what was it? Was it like a couple of cans of diesel and a bit of Semtex to set it off? You know, it could have been as simple as that.
Well, whatever it was, there was no burn marks on the ground. It did create a crater next to the bridge, but they weren't very accurate with their missile. If it was a missile, they weren't very accurate with if it was a mortar, then they got it completely wrong. And I think Ukraine obviously didn't want to repair their bridge, so they thought, right, we'll blow up something next to the bridge so that we can say, look, we're being attacked, and then they don't have to work on the bridge to repair it.
Yeah. So... first of all, why is a pedestrian bridge a military target?
Yeah, exactly. It could have been, as you stated yesterday, a complete mistake.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been a stray shell or something like that. But I think at best this is probably a mortar. At best. And it could have been a false flag. I'm not saying it was a false flag, but it could have been a false flag because there's a lot of that going on, I think, on both sides, because we're getting so much detritus from both sides, so much propaganda from both sides. You know, you've seen them. Remember when they were setting up the bodies and things, and you know, dragging dead bodies about the street, and then satellites showing us one thing and then showing us another, and there's just so much of this nonsense going on that we're back to this wag the dog. I mean, it really is wag the dog. The whole thing's a production.
mean, the story about the playground yesterday is Wag the dog. You know, why would you attack a children's playground?
Well, I've told you why. It's to stop them getting the opportunity to play, so as they don't grow up as fully formed members of society. They grow up in fear and in terror. Much like we were in the last 3 years. Well, not us personally, but, you know. Because the government, there's no doubt in my mind, over the last 3 years, the government terrorised the majority of the population, particularly the elderly. Particularly the elderly. Now, I'm going to say it, okay? I'm going to say it, and you're going to have to take this one on the chin, because it's not often that I get messages that say, it's not often you get a hot-looking nurse who's a serial killer. So tell me about this one, Adam.
Well, Lucy Letby, this has been all over the papers for the last few days. She was injecting insulin into children, into babies specifically. Now, we can only, guess at what happened to her to turn her into a monster. But, you know, she looks a perfectly lovely person, but apparently not. She goes out killing babies.
Yeah.
Allegedly, obviously. We should put that in allegedly. It hasn't been completely proven yet, but they did catch her in the act. They caught her injecting, and one of the babies was bleeding from the mouth when they did it.
Yeah, so, because I think she injected an air bubble into one of them as well, didn't she?
Did she?
That's pretty bad, because that can cause an embolism and subsequent, big that would maybe account for the blood coming out of the mouth if it got into the lungs and damaged them in that respect.
A famous serial killer, wasn't there, that actually did inject insulin into children and people. Yeah. So maybe she's a copycat.
She might be.
Don't know.
Yeah, but you just can't account for women, though, can you?
It's horrible, though, isn't it? This kind of story, especially when it involves children.
It is pretty grotesque. I haven't actually checked on the chat today. How's everybody doing today? Are we all well in the chat room? We're buffering. I don't see any buffering.
That's right. Natasha says Beverly Allett. It was, wasn't it?
Right. Yeah.
What was she known as? Was she just called Beverly Allett, or was she some sort of did she have a serial killer name? I'll Google that.
A serial killer name. Well, if she's, it's assassins that have 3 names, isn't it? Like John Wilkes Booth and all that. They all
that's right.
All the presidential assassination attempts, they've all had 3 names.
Yes.
But many of us do have 3 names. We just don't tend to use them, do we?
No. She was just known as Beverly Allett, so I can't see any murderer names in there.
No murderer names. Moving on. Well, speaking about virtual worlds, we're now into Meta, and they've come up with a new headset which has got cameras on it showing out. So you put the headset on to join the virtual world, which is existing off your real world, plus enhancements.
Yes, so that's right.
What we're doing, blending reality with basically this is Second Life, isn't it? They're trying to rehash Second Life.
Yeah, I mean, the technology here is amazing. They've got facial recognition trackers that watch your expression on your face, and they map it into the metaverse itself. Right. You hold on to these controllers so you can interact with the world.
Have you tried this or seen it in action?
No, I've seen it in use on YouTube. I was watching it last night just to see exactly how this works. Because the price of it's about £1,300 in the UK in one of these. And the software isn't ready for it yet. They've got limited demos that look pretty good, but we won't know. And to be honest, it's run by Facebook, so I will never use it.
Yeah, Facebook's turned into a jumble sale, hasn't it? Really, it's for old people who sell things.
Yeah, the only good bit is about the marketplace on Facebook. The rest of it is just completely useless. The security on there is terrible. It's just an awful platform.
What about Instagram?
Well, Instagram's owned by Facebook, isn't it? So, I mean, it's not something I would use. But, you know, if you want to use it, then fine. It's good for sharing photos, but at least it's a bit simpler.
It used to be good for sharing photos, right?
Yeah.
But now on Instagram, if you share a photograph on Instagram, apparently it only goes to the people that follow you.
Right.
So it's never shown to strangers anymore. The only thing that gets shown that would build you an audience is, what do they call them? Reels.
Yeah.
So it's got to be a video on Instagram now. And Instagram, initially, I couldn't quite grasp the idea of it because it was people posing for photos, and that's all it ever seemed to be. And it's like, you know, how's this social media? You know, I'm looking at your holiday snaps, you know.
Yeah.
But hey, I'm maybe old and disgruntled.
Well, DW7677 says, same here, Adam. I don't think he would use the Quest Pro headset either. And Natasha says you could go out and meet actual people for £1,300.
But I mean, to be fair though, and these days, Natasha, £1,300 isn't going to get you much more than 2 or 3 rounds, is it?
Well, it depends on your friends, doesn't it? You
know? and a taxi home. Right, so tell me about this one then. So now we've discussed gaming. We now find out that gaming can kill us.
It depends on the game that you play. I mean, some games are terrifying. If you've ever played any of the new horror games that are coming out,
don't talk to me about terrifying, right? Don't. I remember, and we're talking PS1.
Yeah,
I think PS1, which wasn't great graphics, right?
No, it wasn't. It was terrible.
I remember playing PS1, and I put in this called Resident Evil. Right?
Yeah.
And I'm walking down this corridor, and I hear this groaning coming from my room at the end, and I thought, okay, well, let's go there. And I walk down the corridor, I turn the corner, and there's a guy on his knees gnawing at something, you know, with his back to me, and I think, okay. And then it fucking zooms in, and he turns around, and then it's a zombie. And I just went, nope. Turned it off. And that was that. I thought, nope, no more. I'm going to go and watch Fluffy Cats now.
Well, I used to play this game called, not Resident Evil, it was the Seventh Guest. Did you ever play Seventh Guest?
No, I don't think I did. What was that
about? It was a puzzle game. And there was this old man that lived in a basement who used to turn people into statues for his game.
Right.
And it was terrifying. It was horrible. It was the music in that game that got me.
Yeah.
So I can understand, you know, children having heart issues playing games, but if you've got a heart issue and you're playing a game, then it's the same as watching a movie, a scary movie, isn't it?
Right. And let's take this in perspective here. The amount of kids with undiagnosed heart issues should be tiny, okay? Because not that many people die from undiagnosed heart conditions.
Yeah, so why are they telling us this now, John?
You know what it is!
I can't really think of any reason why they would. You know, I can't think any reason why they would be bringing these things to the fore. You know, along with the fact that digging and swimming and doing any kind of exercise or in fact doing anything is increases your risk of dying.
It does.
Yeah. So dying is one of these things that we just have to live with.
We do. There is nothing you can do about it.
Absolutely nothing. Moving on, Mr. Belfield.
Oh, good old Alex.
He's a bit of an odd character, isn't he? I mean, the judge did stop him from interrogating complainers, appointing David Aubrey as a proxy advocate. But when Aubrey caught COVID, Vine opted to be questioned by Belfield rather than delay a long-booked holiday, and found himself being asked about the real meaning of the word CUNT. While most defendants on trial tried to avoid cameras on the way into court, Belfield seemed to be doing his best to attract them, wearing an array of wacky jackets and shirts. The day he was found guilty, He was wearing a Bermuda shirt and shorts. Instead of a lawyer, he was often accompanied by James Brandon, a member of the old-school comedy duo, the Grumbleweeds.
Oh, I used to love the Grumbleweeds.
Fans, largely older women, were often in the public gallery to show support. So did these older women not realise that he is, as in the judge's words, a member of the LGBTQ plus community?
He's a member of something.
So, what do you think his game was? Was he trying to get locked up?
He was just demonstrating how stupid the court was, I think. Well,
Yeah.
that's all you can assume, because I mean, obviously he didn't have a lawyer, which was why he was interviewing. I mean, how did this happen? How did he get to interrogate Jeremy Vine?
Well, you do,
That's
because
just-
you get to cross-examine. I mean, I've done it. I've been to court.
Yeah.
Slater Hogan House and took me to court for not selling my house.
Right.
And they wanted $3,500 off me, and I refused to pay it because I'd exited the contract and I'd paid an exit fee of £150. And then they came back to me like 6 months later and said, this person that we originally introduced to you is wanting to have a look around your house.
Do you think he wanted to call Jeremy Vine a CUNT? So he thought, I'll ask him, what's the definition?
Yeah, I think he did. I think that's all it was. I mean, I think he had some strange kind of impression that he was going to win, and he just thought that he could get away with it, and that he was untouchable because he was quite popular among the elderly women.
Yeah.
And he
so
thought,
when you went to court, did you defend yourself like Alex then?
yes, I did, but it was a civil case, so it wasn't just there wasn't any question of my freedom being on trial, and two, it was a small claims court, so they were trying to take money off me for something that I contended they hadn't done.
Did you wear something like what Alex is wearing?
No, I wore a suit.
Or like most normal people?
Yeah, and I did cross-examine the witnesses.
Yeah.
I asked. I was asking one of the witnesses that, or what I was saying to her was, is it not the case that you were so desperate to make a sale that you were prepared to say anything, and or something along those lines? And the sheriff actually interrupted me and goes, "Excuse me, can I just rephrase that question?" And then said, "Is it not the case you were so desperate to make the sale and so concerned with making your own commission that you just decided to say anything at that point in order to make sure that this would go ahead?" And I'm like, exactly what she said. So the sheriff was getting a bit pissed off with Slater Hogan House and people because they were trying to avoid answering questions. But it was an experience. But having said that, I have spent a considerable amount of time in courtrooms giving evidence as a witness. Not as the accused.
Natasha's just said in the chat, is the Grumbleweed guy his romantic partner?
Could
now
be.
I'm
Don't know.
amazed that the Grumbleweeds are still going.
I've no idea. It could be. I don't know.
Yeah, I remember going to see the Grumbleweeds, John.
Do you?
Many years ago.
I can't really place them, to be fair.
They were a terrible musical act that were touring with Brian Connolly at the time.
Oh, I remember Brian Connolly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, speaking of romantic partners, how would you fancy waking up next to this?
Is he pregnant?
That statement's just so wrong in so many levels, isn't it? So this is your candidate for Labour MP for Sheffield, is it?
I don't know what it is, John.
Yeah, well, that's what it is. This is Eddie. Or I don't know. Is he called Eddie, or does he change his name? Does he change it to Edwina or whatever? Because Eddie, I mean, it's like Ben has pointed out this before. Eddie is He's a man of many colours, and he's quite happy. He's quite happy to change his spots when it comes to being a man or a woman, because he does a lot of acting still, and generally it's not as a woman. So he's a man playing a man's role. I don't think I've ever seen him in a film where he's a man playing a woman's role. And yet here he is, a man playing a woman's role in real life, and putting himself up for election as a candidate to represent Sheffield. I mean, isn't Sheffield like a Yorkshire town or something like that? Is it Yorkshire?
Yeah, well, it is up north. I don't know if Sheffield's. That's terrible. We don't know that, isn't it? Let me go Google that.
The only thing I know about Sheffield is it used to make cutlery. It was
Does
famous
anybody
for
know?
its steel.
There you go. DW767 has answered that question for us. It is a part of.
I kind of thought Yorkshire people were meant to be quite sensible, generally.
Well, our Prime Minister's from Yorkshire, isn't she?
Oh, there goes that theory out the window then. Yeah, okay. Shoot me down now.
Sorry, John.
I've blown that one. Right, let's move on. Tell me about King Charles. What's he up to?
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, good old Charlie. He's decided he's going to take one of his clocks along to the repair shop. He's also got a bit of pottery that he's found in one of the old palaces. So he's going to nip that along and get it repaired. And he's just going to turn up and go, I don't know what these things are I've brought in here. Somebody's given me these, and I've just thought I'd bring them on to repair so I can look like a member of the public and appear on this poor person's show about repairing things that I've never done in my life. So, yeah, he's trying to connect with the people, isn't he, just before his coronation. And, you know, credit to him. This is the way to do it, isn't it? He'll be on Celebrity Big Brother next. And
we know when his coronation is now, don't we?
We do, yes, yeah.
It's on the day after my birthday. That's a bit of a clash there.
Yes,
I'm going to have to write to him and say, I'm not happy about this. It's the day after my birthday.
You'll have to perhaps have a joint one.
I think I might be more popular than him. No, probably not, to be fair.
Poor old Charlie. At least he's doing his best, isn't he? He's trying to go on a few shows to, up his public opinion.
Well, at least he did what he was told and didn't go to COP.
That's right.
Yeah.
But who knows what show he'll appear on next?
Yeah, I don't know. I just don't know. I just don't know about the Royals. They don't do it for me. I have no... I don't see any need for them, shall we say. Anyway, go on.
He always looks like he's a bit uncomfortable, doesn't he? I mean, in that picture of him there and on that slide, he doesn't look very happy.
Well, I think he is uncomfortable because I think he's like... I mean, you've seen his fingers. You've seen the sausages of the King's Hand.
Yes,
they are massive. And it's that's kind of... It's got to be some kind of fluid retention. I suspect some kind of heart problem. Because his fingers are like sausages. It's a bit bizarre.
Yeah. Well, if you've been watching the Game of Thrones spin-off, the prequel, then
I haven't seen the latest yet. But
just wait then, because
I presume the king's certainly in a bad way. So
he is.
I'm assuming he'll be dying soon.
But he doesn't have sausage fingers like Charlie does.
No, he doesn't. That's because he's an actor and he's not really ill.
The makeup's very good, though. There's a bit where you can see the inside of his cheek.
Nice.
Yeah, it's very good.
Yeah. Speaking of seeing people's insides, we're going to nip to the New York Post, right? So this is the gift that does keep on giving, as we like to say. So this ex-teacher, 33, who got herself knocked up accidentally by a student while on a drunken night out, is 8 months pregnant, and says she's an ex-teacher because she got knocked up by the student. and she doesn't really want to. She doesn't really want to give up having babies, so she just wants to rent her body out to strangers and have babies for them. Have beautiful babies because of her hot mom bod, in her words. Currently, she's making $22,000 a month on OnlyFans. $22,000 a month. $22,000 a month. So, Ben, if you're listening, I retract my statement about you having an OnlyFans channel. Get in there, lad. Just get right in there.
We do need to do something like that. I mean, we could combine sort of an Eddie Izzard thing with this sort of thing, couldn't we? And stick it on OnlyFans. We'd make a fortune.
I think a dwarf. A dwarf is what we need. Yeah. I mean, yes. all the big channels have got a dwarf. Logan Paul, Mr. Beast.
I was speaking to my wife about this. You're not allowed to call them dwarves anymore. It's small person.
No. Your wife is completely wrong. That is dwarfist.
Oh, sorry.
She's completely out of order. You cannot call him a small person.
Yeah.
You know, that's like how degrading is that? They are dwarfs, and they want to be known as dwarfs. They don't want to be known as small people.
If you review the new Lord of the Rings show on Amazon and you state that there are dwarves in it and that the English people are English, the Scottish people are Scottish, and the Welsh people are Welsh, then your review won't be allowed. Because I tried to review it and they banned my review.
Yeah, that's because you're maybe misnationalising people.
Maybe.
That's because Amazon are a bunch of assholes, basically.
I thought my review was quite good, and there was a lot of negative reviews, 1-star reviews on there, and it didn't get through at all.
Have I got out of focus?
No, you're okay, John.
Okay. So, I think that was the last item on the list.
I think we've just about covered everything, haven't we?
Yeah, I think we have. Is there anything else that you'd like to bring up?
No, I don't think so. I'm sure we'll have loads for tomorrow, so we'll see.
We will indeed see.
In fact, John, I might not be here tomorrow, so you might have to do the show on your own tomorrow.
Well, I think Ben's back.
Is he?
Yeah,
so we should hear all about where he's been.
I think Ben is back tomorrow. So we should hear about where he's been, and we should see what he's up to. Are you sure I'm in focus?
You look fine. Yep.
Okay. I'll just. How's that? Is that better?
Yep, that's fine. So just to answer Natasha, yes, Ben is going to do that.
He's gonna have his boobs out. Yeah. I mean, listen, he doesn't need much. He doesn't need much in the way of what would you call it? Encouragement, does he?
No, he doesn't. He's
very keen.
And he's got the wig, so he's there.
Yeah. And speaking of OnlyFans, if you are an OnlyFan and would like to contribute some meager amount of cash or some other means of paying us, then feel free, please, to go ahead and join us on the after party, which should be on tonight at 9 o'clock, which is a perk that only donators get. So you can donate on patreon.com/chasingdescent, subscribestar.com/chasingdescent, or our preferred donation method, kofi.com/chasingdescent. That's KO-FI, because they don't take a cut. They're very generous. They just give us everything that you give them. So, with that, I'd like to bring to a close this fine episode of Chasing Descent, episode 139, and bid you all a good afternoon. Adam?
Cheers, thank you very much, and I'll see you soon.
Indeed you will.
That's all we've got time for this evening, so it's good night from me.
And it's good night from him. Good night. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Stop playing with my bust!
Good night, everyone.
Good night, children.
Good night, Daddy.
You're a what?
A pianist.
Mwah! Good night, everybody.
You have been a delightful audience to talk. Good night. Thank you.
Oh, my bottom hurts. Good night, everybody.
Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob.
Oh, I did love that hamster so. I took it into bed with me every night, you know.
Good night, everybody.
I think, ladies and gentlemen, I think I have to go now. I've been standing here for a very long time. I think the end of the show must have come and gone.
There you go. That's our solar system. You forgot Uranus. Good night, everybody.
Thank you for listening. You've been very nice to work to.
Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.